Hey guys, today I'm going to be talking about the books that I read in November. I have a little bit of everything. We have some nonfiction, some fantasy, some thriller, and we're also going to be talking about the book tube event that broke my brain a little bit. So hi. My name's Talia. I love books. I love bandanas. I'm so glad you're at my channel today. Not gonna lie, November put me into a little bit of a reading slump. It got a little overwhelming, a little chaotic, and I ended up just having to take kind of a break from filming, and I did a little bit of hanging up these lights that I've had for a few months. Finally did some redecorating, a little bit of channel rebranding. I got a bookmark made, which I'm super happy about. I'll be sharing some pictures of that soon. And yeah, so I participated in Nonfiction November and the Get A Clue Readathon, which was hosted by Rainy Blue Reads. And let me say, Rainy Blue Reads did an amazing job on this readathon. Like, the amount of time and effort and energy she put into all of the prompts, which she filmed like individual videos for all the prompts, all the clues, like there was all these bonus events. She did an amazing job. Like, it was so fun. I will say for me, I probably wouldn't participate again because I got so far behind that I couldn't catch up, and like I just kind of ended up getting overwhelmed, and like I don't like to do things like halfway, and I just got a little bit overwhelmed about it. But I will say, like, it was so fun, and I think she's gonna do it again next year. I don't know. It will depend on my headspace if I will participate again, but I'm going to kind of share how that readathon went for me and how I was able to fit some of my nonfiction reads and other reads into November. Okay, so I have my notebook with my birds on it, which I did do a pretty good job taking notes of what was going on during this readathon, because I was like, there's no way I'm going to remember any of this. So how the readathon worked was like prompts would drop. So we were all divided into teams. So I was on team White, team Mrs. White. And she would send a video and be like, hey, here's your prompt number 1. So everyone was getting different prompts at different times. You had no idea what the prompt was going to be. You had no idea, like, when it was coming. You had no idea how long you were going to have until the next prompt dropped. And everyone was competing against each other to try to read as fast as they could to get the most points, because if you got the most points, you got bonus clues, and if you got the least amounts of points, you got punishments. So right away, it was a little bit overwhelming, but it started out okay. So the first prompt, my team was in the library, and we had to read a book that was a movie or a TV adaptation. So I was really happy because one of the books that was on my TBR that I wanted to read for November for nonfiction was This Is Going to Hurt by Adam Kay. And this is about a gentleman who is a gynecologist, a doctor, and it just kind of tells his story of going through residency and what it was like being a doctor. I don't think he is anymore. I think he's an author now and got himself out of that career. And if you read this book, you would understand why, because just the stuff that doctors go through and deal with, it's just crazy. Like, it's just crazy. Like, it was just kind of like days in his life, and just the people he had to deal with, the situations he had to deal with. It was an interesting read. It was pretty crazy. It made me glad that I did not pursue a career in the medical field, because that was something I was toying around with in my younger years, and I've always kind of been like, what if, you know? And this is the first book I read that I was like, oh my gosh, I would hate that. Like, man, doctors and nurses and all the people in healthcare, like, they're just all stars. Like, they should make millions of dollars. Like, they are amazing. I will say, as far as the writing of the book went, it was good. I felt like it was kind of overly, like, not, maybe graphic would be the word to use. Overly, like, shock value, kind of like, oh, this happened, and like, let me give you details that make you like, oh, when it didn't need to be that graphic for some of these situations. You can kind of use your imagination when we're talking about gynecology and stuff that goes on. But yeah, overall, I thought it was a great read. I was happy. I completed it before prompt number 2 dropped, so I was like, all right, things are going well, okay? So prompt number 2 dropped for our team, and it was the Conservatory, and we were supposed to read a book featuring a non-human character. Super excited because I could fit this one into my nonfiction November plans as well. I read The Good Good Pig by Cy Montgomery. I've been talking about Cy a lot on my channel. She writes just great books about the stories of her life and animals that she has studied and animals that she had lived with. And this is about a pig that she ended up taking in as a baby and growing up to this big, huge pig, and just like how he was just like a member of her family that she loved and adored. Yeah, it was a great read, just warm, heartfelt, definitely some sad parts in it, but overall really loved that one as well. Okay, so I was so proud of myself because like I'm on like prompt 2. Oh, I will say prompt number 2, we had a punishment because my team, we were either in last place or second to last place, so we had to read a book with a black cover. So The Good Good Pig had a black cover on it and featured an animal. So that's why I read that book. So you can see how this readathon, like, it was tough because some of the prompts got so specific that you were like, okay, like, what am I going to read? How am I going to find, like, how am I going to figure out what to do? So my level of stress was pretty high early on, but I was doing good through prompt 2, okay? So then I decided to start on a bonus prompt because I had some time. So there was a whole list. Each team got a list of like different bonus prompts that they could do. And one of mine was, since I was team Mrs. White, to read a book that had a mostly white cover. So I started reading The Glass Castle by Jeanette Walls. And right when I picked up The Glass Castle by Jeanette Walls, I read like a few chapters and the next prompt dropped. So I had to stop reading that. We'll come back to it, don't worry. So prompt number 3 dropped. It was The Lounge. We had to read a cover that had all the letters of our name in it. And there was a secret passage, which meant it had to be, the book we chose had to be the same rating as the previous book that we finished. So The Good Good Pig, I rated a 5-star, so I had to read a book that on Goodreads was between, I think, a 4 and a 5-star, okay? See? Very specific things happening in this readathon. Again, so creative. This is not against Rainy Blue Reads at all. Like, I had fun with this readathon. I think it was amazingly creative. I just feel like for me and the phase of life I am, I needed way more time to read. I needed a month vacation from my children and all my housework and all my responsibilities to be able to properly do this readathon. And I'm so impressed because like people from my team like nailed it. Like people from my team went through all the prompts and like read so many more books than me and like just gave it their all. And I wish I would have done a better job for my team. I'm sorry, Team White. So you can see where this is probably gonna go, but let's just continue talking about it. Okay, so we had to read a book with all the letters of your name, and a book that had good ratings on Goodreads because my past book had good ratings on Goodreads. Okay, so good still, because I had this on my TBR that I really wanted to read in November. All the letters for Talia are in here somewhere. This is Sean Dietrich's first nonfiction like book, because he has a bunch of nonfiction writing. I'll actually talk about that later too. But this is like the story of his life. So Sean Dietrich, aka Sean of the South, his father committed suicide when he was 12 years old. His mom took care of him and his little sister, but things were pretty rough. They ended up staying with relatives and then moving far away from the place where they were living, and Sean ended up dropping out of school. It's the story of his life, and it is tough to read at points, but he is just an amazing human being, and I've been talking about him a bit on my channel, so it's probably broken record by now, but the way he pulled himself up and eventually put himself through community college, it took like 11 years, I think, like, and he like laughs about that in here, like how it took him so long to get through community college, but ends up like defying all the odds, like becomes a writer, writes books. He ends up becoming a musician, which is something like his father wanted him to do. And it's just kind of the story of how he like met his bride Jamie and how she like helped encourage him to be the person that he is now. So I loved it. I thought it was amazing. You can see in really tiny writing here, it says a memoir of learning to believe you're going to be okay. And yeah, I just think that he learned that he was going to be okay. And it was a tough road, but he is a person now who spends his time and energy like trying to make sure that other people are okay. So loved that. So good. Okay. Oops, lost my place in my notebook. Hang on. Okay, so I did finish that one on time. Like right on time. So then prompt number 4 dropped, and prompt number 4 was The Hall, which is a book written with multiple points of view. And we got a punishment for being in last place, and the book had to be 400 pages. So this is where things got a little bit sketchy. Okay, so I picked to read The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. So this book had been on my shelf for so long. I loved The Night Circus. So I wanted to read this at some point. Side note, I got this used, I think on second sale for like $4, and it's perfect condition. Like it has like the keys in there. Love it. So anyways, this was not a book I at all was planning to read. And to read it for a readathon of this caliber, looking back, it probably was not a good choice. And I started reading hard copy, but then I was kind of going back and forth. I was able to get the audiobook from the library, so I kind of like was listening to it for a while, and I jumped back to reading in the evenings and back and forth. So if you have read this book, you will understand this is just not a book you can read super quickly. It's very atmospherical. It is like, I still have a hard time knowing what it's about. And let me say, it's a 5-star. Like, I loved reading this book. I loved being immersed in this world. And we have like 2 kind of different worlds going on. We have like this, how do I even explain? We have like the Starless Sea, which is like this undersea world, and there's all these like labyrinths and all these tunnels and all these books. And we have our main character, Zachary, who gets like taken down into this world through this really long, confusing way. And I don't even know, you guys. I don't even know. I know it took me a really long time to get through, and I know I really liked it. The whole time I was like, oh, this is great. What's going on now? And then it kind of ended, and I still don't really know what went on. And I just know I really liked it. So I'm reading this book, okay? While I'm reading this book, prompt number 5 dropped, which was you're supposed to read a book published in your birthday month, okay? So couldn't start that because I'm still reading this, right? Then in the readathon, a mid-month chaos happened. So you were supposed to pause everything. We're going to put this down for a minute. You were supposed to pause everything you were reading, not read your current prompts anymore, and read anything you could for 48 hours and try to read like as many books as you could. Okay. So like size didn't really matter of the books. You were just supposed to like get as many books as you can going. So I'm like, okay. So I wanted to read Sean Dietrich's next memoir, which is called You Are My Sunshine. And it's a pretty short one, and I was able to get it on audiobook pretty quickly. So I listened to that, and I liked that even more than Will the Circle Be Unbroken? So it's the story of Sean and his wife, Jamie, taking this bike ride, because she kind of gets this health scare at one point, and she decides like she wants to do something big. So they go on this like bike ride through this like rugged terrain, and I can't remember the states at this point. It's like Pennsylvania down, I think, to Washington, D.C., like this few hundred mile bike ride, right? And it was so funny. Like, I was laughing listening to it, like, so much. Like, it was great. Like, first of all, like, Sean is scared of bike riding, so like instead of riding a bike, he gets like this trike, and like, but like a big trike, like for a grown man. You guys, it was just so funny hearing him talk about just riding this bike, and like he kept getting separated from his wife, and then like it was pouring rain and torrential downpours, and there's like snakes, and he's really scared of snakes, and like they decide to stop at one point, and then they decide to keep going again, and it was just like, it was just hilarious. Like, it was like adventure story, but also pure comedy, and also just like going more into like their relationship and like them sticking together through thick and thin, and like it was just so well done. It was yeah, it was another 5-star from Shaun of the South. Like, I loved it. Okay, also more Shaun of the South. Okay, I also, during that mid-month chaos, I read Shaun of the South Volume 2. So I had read Volume 1 already. This is super short stories. These are actually blog posts. So for the past, I don't know how long, maybe 10 years or so, maybe 15, he has been writing like a daily blog post that he just posts onto his website, and some are happy, some are sad, some are about life, some are about loss, some are about like things he's witnessed, random acts of kindness, just everything are covered in these blog posts. And he has just made some compilations of the blog posts so you can have them in book format, which I really appreciate because I can hold them in my hand and I can like put little tabs on the ones that are my favorite, and I don't have to scroll back like through 10 years of blog posts because that would be super inconvenient. So loved this. I think I give this 4 stars just because it's not really like a cohesive story. Like, some are good, some are kind of like, but overall, a good read and recommended. Hey, Judah, don't touch that. I got a cat trying to get my drink. Don't. Thank you. Okay, so that was mid-month chaos. So right after mid-month chaos happened, I finished only those 2 books. Some people on my team finished like 10. Like, some even more than that because they were reading like the manga books. They were reading those, and those like counted, and like listening to super like a whole bunch of books, and like I only got 2 done, but I was pretty proud of that. So right after that mid-month chaos, prompt number 6 dropped. Okay, now Talia's still on prompt number 4. Okay, wandering around underneath the Starless Sea, trying to figure out what's going on, having a good time, but still on prompt 4, and prompt number 6 has dropped, where you're supposed to start a series, and as a punishment, it was supposed to be in a genre we don't typically read. So I picked Live and Let Try by Bree Baker because it starts a series, and I don't read a lot of cozy mystery. It's something I'm trying to get into. So I picked that one, but I had to keep reading the Starless Sea. Okay, then there was a relay. And this is when my notes get a little bit sketch. I said relay that I missed because I was still working on book 4. I know in this relay we were supposed to go like watch videos that have been done by Rainy Blue Reads to figure out answers to clues, I think. But I didn't have time to do that. Like, I was like knee deep in books, and I didn't have time. My life was busy. So I didn't have time to do that. Okay, so I was working on that. Then I had to start this book, A Kind of Spark, by Elle McNeil, because I had a buddy read planned with Chatty the Mad Chatter and Towering TBR. So we had been planning to read this in November, and I finally got my copy, and it was time. So I started to read this. And I think I read this pretty quickly. I should have checked my Goodreads. I think I finished this. No, I didn't. I did finish the Starless Sea prior to finishing this. But before I finished either of these, prompt number 7 dropped, okay? So prompt number 7 drops. I'm still reading prompt number 4. And at this point, I'm like, all right, this is not going to happen for you, Talia. You need to take a break. And every time a prompt would come, I would kind of start to hyperventilate a little because I was like, oh my gosh, they were dropping like every 2 to 3 days, like, which is just, it was just tough. It was tough not knowing what was coming and like not being able to plan. And like the ones I had planned, I was like, well, I can't even start reading those because I'm still reading Behemoth. So at that point I was like, okay, like you got to kind of let it go, Talia. You got to stop freaking out about this. So I finished this, and as I said, 5 stars, loved it. Still not sure what it's about. Then I finished A Kind of Spark. So this is a middle grade book, and it is about a girl named, what's her name? Cannot remember. Does it not say on the back? Dun, dun, dun. I cannot remember this girl's, oh, Adeline. Okay, yes, Adeline. So Adeline is autistic. She's treated super poorly by her teacher. Like, her teacher's like super abusive to her and like yelling at her in class for her poor handwriting. And Adeline is super smart, super intelligent, sees things, feels things that other people do not feel. Her class starts learning about these witch trials and these witches that were basically executed for being different and weren't able to explain why they were different. Some of them possibly had autism or were autistic, I think is the correct way to say that. That was part of this book, so I should remember that. You're not supposed to say they had autism, because autism is not something you have, it's something you are. So you're supposed to say, like, she is autistic is the correct way to say it, if I remember correctly. So yeah, this book just gave like such a great in-depth, like easy to digest description of autism. And then the main character feels really strongly for these women who were executed with basically for being different. And she is different and has had people in her life treated differently because they don't fit in with the crowd. I just thought it was really well done. She ends up like trying to raise money to have a memorial for these women, and it meets a whole bunch of pushback, and it's kind of about like, you know, fighting for what you believe in, and it's okay to be different, and there's not anything wrong with you because you are not neurotypically like the way everyone else is. So yeah, I thought this was great. 5-star, definitely gonna share it with my kids at some point. It'll be part of our like homeschool vibes, because I thought the lessons were great and I want to share it with my kids for sure. Okay, so after that, I was like, I don't want to start prompt 5 yet. I want to finish this. So I went back and I finished The Glass Castle. So The Glass Castle, it just made me so thankful that I have the parents that I have, because I mean, I have very good parents. I think most parents, compared to the parents in this book, are rock stars, because these were really bad parents. So, Jeanette Walls grew up with, her siblings, and her dad, like, never really made any money, was always, like, trying to invent something or like on the next big discovery. And her mom basically just ignored the kids because she wanted to do painting and art and didn't really want to be a mother. So these kids basically grew up in like just squalor, like just no food. Like they never had any food. They would like have to scrounge through garbage cans to get food. They, like the girl at the very beginning, it talks about how she was cooking hot dogs when she was 3 years old over the stove, and she like lit her hair on fire and like had to go, you know, to the hospital, and then her dad just like ended up like checking her out and was like, you don't need the hospital. Like just crazy thing after crazy thing after crazy thing happens in this book. And you're just like, I cannot believe these kids went through this. Like, I cannot believe this happened. Like, they would sleep like with their doors open, and creepy men would like be coming into the house, and like they would like just not have anywhere to put their trash, so they'd just like dig a hole in the front yard and be filling it with garbage. Then her dad was just like drinking all the time. Like, you guys, it was so bad. And like so bad, but like the kids end up like banding together and like taking care of each other. And like even when their parents decide to be homeless because they would rather do that than work, like, and it's so interesting because they never like seek like government assistance or anything. You know what I mean? They're like, oh no, we would never seek government assistance. We don't need help. We don't need anything. But yet like they wouldn't work and they wouldn't make any money, and they just let their kids like be so poor and like not able to eat, and like it was just crazy. You guys, this book was crazy. It was so well done. Like I loved it. I loved where it went, but there was definitely parts of it that were tough to read. It definitely is one that will stick with you. And if you're having any sort of trouble in your family, you should read this because it might make you feel better about whatever's going on, because this was pretty bad. But again, like a great story of like resilience and pushing through, and like, man, like humans can get through amazing things. Like that's all I'm gonna say. Read that book. If you haven't read that book, read that book. It's a good one. Okay, so at this point, like probably like prompt 9 or 10 have dropped, like I don't know, or like 10. There was like more bonus stuff going on. At this point, we'll just forget about the readathon because I don't even have any more notes about it. But I did go back after doing those 2 bonus reads, which this one did count for a bonus prompt as well, because it was one with like a, I can't remember if I counted it for pretty cover or backlist book, which was published before 2022, and this one was. So I logged both of those, and then I was like, okay, I'm gonna go start my prompt number 5. And this was like, there was 2 days left in the readathon. So I didn't think I was going to get through it. I actually did finish my prompt number 5. But then I didn't realize I could log it, because I finished this book on the end of November 30th, and then I didn't log it because I thought it was past 9 p.m. Eastern, so I was like, oh, I can't log it. And then I saw a message the next morning like, hey, don't forget to log your last books. And I had already like, it was already past the time at that point for the morning log. So I was like, oh man. But anyways, prompt number 5 is to read a book that was published in your birth month. And I was born in July. This book was published in July. I had this on my shelf for a while, so I picked it up. So this is Christian fiction thriller book. We have the main character, Piper. She, the very beginning of the book, loses her daughter. Her daughter is like kind of kidnapped and like ends up being murdered, and we flash forward to like 15 years later, and that's where most of the story takes place. And Piper is in like this shooting in this cafe, and she's saved by a random stranger, and we kind of go from there. And it's from that point, it's her piecing together like what is happening, who's trying to shoot her, and all this other family mystery that's going on. There's like this big like mansion they have on this little tiny island where most of the story takes place, and it's just like family dynamics. You're trying to figure out like what's going on, who's good, who's bad, and at the same time she is like still working through and processing like the loss of her daughter. She's had a really hard time for the past 15 years like really letting anyone in and moving forward with her life and having like any sort of joy. So I really liked this. I thought it was well done. I gave it 4 stars. I will say it was Christian fiction, but it definitely like wasn't in your face. I feel like some Christian fiction is like, now I shall give you a sermon in the middle of a random scene where it does not belong. Do you know what I mean? And you're like, are we going on with the story or what? And I didn't feel like it was at all. I feel like it was just like slipped in ways that like made you think about how God can interact in some scenarios in our lives. And yeah, I just really liked it. I'll definitely be reading more by Carrie Stewart Parks. I thought this was a good one, and the ending surprised me and was enjoyable. So good. So that is what I read in November. And I will say, even when I finished this, I just felt like overwhelmed. Like I don't think it's a readathon I will participate in again, just because it was a little bit too much, like just a little bit too much for my brain. Like I was kind of tired by the end of it. So yeah. But overall, I feel like I got quite a bit of reading done. I definitely, like right at the end of November, I was feeling like, oh my goodness, I need a break. Like, oh my goodness, like where am I gonna go from here? So I took a little bit of a break. It's very rare that I go like multiple days without reading, but I did take a couple days off. I bought some books on the internet, because when you're feeling like not reading, the next best thing is like doing my hobby of buying books, right? So I do have a haul to show you soon. And yeah, overall that was November. How was your November? Did you participate in the Get a Clue Readathon? If you did, how did it go for you? If you are one of the people that like finished all the prompts, like gold star for you. That's amazing. Yeah, so that's all. I hope you're doing well wherever you are. I hope you take some time today to read a good book or two. And if you are having a bad hair day, just wear a bandana. Bye. Cause like sometimes when you're out talking to people and you want to like talk about your channel, it's like awkward to be like, hey, like here's my channel, but it's not as awkward to be like, here's a bookmark. Although I still can't really picture myself giving anybody the bookmark because I am awkward in real life and on the internet, but that's okay.